asked myself, do I want to keep growing this business? Or would I want to shrink to maybe 40 people?
When I left my village in 1993, Stephen, from India, my father told me one thing. Sunny, it's always going to be hard to earn.
Welcome to part one of this very special episode of Sunny's Silver Linings. Sunny's guest today is Stephen Freidkin, founder and CEO of Ntiva. In the first part of this episode, they chat about Stephen's entrepreneurial journey, the culture at Ntiva, strategies used to achieve growth, and so much more. And now, your host, the founder and CEO of IT by Design, Mr. Sunny Kayla. Over to you, Sunny.
Hi, Stephen. Welcome to my show.
Privileged to be here. Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. And I loved our conversation last week, IT Nation. I know we recently met, but a couple of interactions I had, and especially the most recent one, having our breakfast and having that conversation, I truly enjoyed it. And I appreciate you, my friend, and your friendship.
Thank you, Sunny. And I appreciate the same from you.
Thank you. And I think there are a lot of that when you talk about a value system, like we're very people driven and people focused. So I think that's what really building this bond. And okay, so let's start with your journey, Stephen. Can you please share your life journey, especially your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my entrepreneurial journey really started at a young age. We could go back in time to when I was 6 or 7 and I was collecting and selling rocks on the street. But I'll choose to start the journey specifically as it related to technology. I was about 12 years old. I was in middle school at the time. Girls wouldn't pay attention to me. I was struggling paying attention in class. I was bored with the subjects. And I found myself sneaking out of school and crossing the street and spending much of my time during the day at a local CompUSA. So this was in the 90s. And I'd find myself really just having joyous moments being inside of that store, playing with technology, seeing what was new that was coming out. I completely loved touching it, feeling it, and experiencing all of these new things. And, I was doing this for a few months. And one day I got caught by my dean of the middle school. And she was like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, you can't be doing this. You're only 12 years old." And I said, "Look, I'm just struggling paying attention in class. This is really exciting to me." And she pauses and goes, "Well, your grades are crappy. I'll make you a deal. You bring your grades up to all A's, and I'll turn the other cheek and let you go and spend time over at this CompUSA." I was confident, at the time that this person was calling a bluff because they thought, hey, there's no way this Stephen can pull his grades up and do all this. But I took the challenge and I started paying attention in class and really focusing on driving the results that I needed to in order to allow myself what I thought would be the freedom to then spend time doing what I actually loved. Don't know why I loved it, but I really found passion in playing with that technology. So long story short, next quarter, wind up getting straight A's. And the dean stood firm to her word and allowed me to, not quite every day, but for the most part, sneak across the street and do what I needed to do when she kind of looked in the other direction. And this was something that I was really enjoying. And one day I happened to be wearing a red shirt when I was there, and that was their uniform. And I was mistaken as an employee. And I told the person that was talking to me, "Hey, no, I'm not an employee, but tell me a little bit about your needs." And he was effectively asking whether or not he should get a desktop or laptop. I helped him make that decision. And then he turned to me and said, "Would you be willing to go over to my home and set this up?" I did a little bit of research, and turns out this person had a very successful business at the time, about 15,000 employees. And
Wow.
He invited me into his home to go and set up this computer. I'll never forget it because I went there, I took the bus, I got there, and I worked for 2 hours, and I left with a $75 check. And I could not believe that somebody paid me to do the thing that I loved doing so much. And I left that house and went back to my parents' house, and on the old school answering machine with a tape, by the time I got back, was 2 referrals from that business owner who had other friends that needed similar help in their homes. But turns out those friends were also business owners in the DC metro market. I wind up getting those referrals and starting out, and effectively through middle school and then high school, working extensively on providing residential end user support before that was a thing. Had accumulated quite a bit of clients. In fact, one of those clients who at this point I'm 17 years old, I had been working with for 4 or 5 years, turns to me and says, "Hey, you've been dealing with my spouse and my kids for the last 4 or 5 years. That's hard in comparison to my business. Would you be willing to help me in my business? I'm going to be starting a new mortgage company." And I thought to myself, you know what, let me give it a shot. And I went in there, and I'll never forget it, because I was working my rear off, and I was trying to figure out what the heck to do. And I remember doing about 40 hours of work and only billing for 4 hours as I was figuring it out. And I wound up really gaining expertise in how mortgage applications worked. And this was at a time right as the mortgage industry was about to heat up. And a lot of opportunities were going to be created in that market. Long story short, loan officers that worked for that individual, and frankly, loan officers in general at the time, would jump from mortgage company to mortgage company based on who would pay a little bit more commission. And I would get pulled along with them because I was the technology leader for this particular application in the DC metro market in the late 90s, early 2000s. Again, I'm still in high school. Eventually, I'm at the Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland, and I am every single day doing what I need to do to get my coursework done and continue to maintain good grades and get good education, but turn around and spend the majority of my time and energy ultimately continuing to grow this business. If you then fast forward really from early 2000s all the way to 2015, I had this amazing business that I was spending 6, 7 days a week, 12, 16 hours a day working on, and having a ton of fun and fulfillment doing it, to the point where I woke up one day in 2015, many, many years later, with a relatively, what I thought was small, but big business compared to others in our industry. Let's call it about 80 employees. And I woke up with this business, and I was struggling keeping my finger on the pulse of everything that was going on at that point in time with 80 employees or so. And again, to me, it felt small. It felt like no big deal, but I had taken a moment to just compare where I was against the rest of the market. And I noticed that there were over 30,000 companies that did what we do in the US alone. And at 80 employees, we were in the top 500 in terms of size. So the market was very, very highly fragmented. So long story short, at that size, I was starting to struggle, like I said, keeping my finger on the pulse of everything, and had elevated managers into positions in the company to keep things going. And I'll tell you, it worked well. Those managers kept the trains running on time. But what I noticed is there was a material difference in the energy level inside of the business. And the best way I could describe it is before those managers were in place, people were running through walls. And they were either running through walls because I ran first and they were following me, or I asked them to and they just did it. And now things were just kind of going at a reasonable pace. And everything was, a proverbial 9 to 5. And the energy level felt different to me. Not that it was inappropriate to work less hours, but that the energy and the motivation didn't seem the same as what was really exciting to me over the last, at that point, almost 20 years of my career doing this very thing. And what I did was I challenged myself at that time. I had to pull myself out of the day-to-day. I had to pull myself out of everything that I was just constantly thinking about and ask myself, do I want to keep growing this business? Or would I want to shrink to maybe 40 people? Would I maybe want to move to K Street in Washington, D.C. and just support businesses in a 3-block radius and really simplify things, keep my finger on the pulse of everything at a smaller scale, and enjoy that running through walls feeling? And what I did was I took, money off the table and I kept challenging myself. Why is it that for the last 15, 20 years, I've been able to wake up every day, be energized, to work the way that I work and really keep doing this company at this insane pace at the time? And what I kept coming back to was two consistent experiences. The first one would happen maybe about 30% of the time, and I'd be at a local philanthropic event or networking event, and let's say I'd be at a bar and I have a name tag that would say Steve and Ntiva and nothing else, and I notice the name tag of someone else with a client name on it, and I'd go and I'd introduce myself, and I'd hear something to the effect of, "Oh, Ntiva, I know Ntiva. Ever since we started working with them, our technology has just worked. And as a result, we've been able to focus on growing our business." And I would remember hearing that, and I would just have instant energy and be able to work, the pace I was working for at least 2 weeks. My bucket was full. What would happen even more than that experience is with new employees. And those were people that I would have in the company for 3 or 6 months. I'd get together with them regularly, really after 90 days, but before 180 days to see how their experience was over coffee or lunch. And probably 9 out of 10 times, I'd hear the same opening line from the team member. And it would sound something like, "Hey, in the last 3 to 6 months that I've been here, I've learned and grown more than my formal education." What was amazing to me about that is we had created this company that existed to grow people, and technology was simply what was accelerating that growth. I realized after hearing from those team members that really put, I don't know how else to say this, but like when I would hear from an employee of that impact that we made to them, the fact that in a short period of time they've grown more than their prior job and or formal education, I would be smiling ear to ear for 2 weeks and have no issue hard charging every single day, working 16 hours and just being motivated to move this business forward and continue to grow. So like I said, what I realized at this point was we existed to grow people, and technology simply accelerated that growth. Once I figured that out, I knew the answer was to keep growing this company, because what gave me my own reward selfishly was seeing other people grow, which of course was growing me at the same time. New challenges, new opportunities, just new things that kept me out of my comfort zone and gave me new challenges every day. So I was never bored. My ADHD mind never had a new thing, or didn't have a new thing that I could jump on and be challenged by and eventually overcome and become stronger from working through. So understanding that, I took a whole look at the entire market. I remember at that time thinking back to 2005, when I would be lucky to be able to convince a 100-user company to outsource their IT needs. But in 2015, I was getting calls from 300-person companies that were looking for the solution. They already knew they wanted to outsource this, but they were looking for a provider to do so. So what I realized in that case is, bigger and bigger companies wanted and needed what we do. We no longer had to convince them of that. However, the core service of keeping people's stuff up and running was becoming commoditized, where a lot of these companies were really looking to outsource it to save money. And understanding that there was a commoditization in play and that we were wanting to exist to grow people, I was challenged with how to do that. And ultimately, the team and I dug into this and decided that the way to do this with people was to invest in automation to elevate the technical talent to do that which only they could do. So automation would keep the stuff up and running for the clients, and then our technical talent would be elevated to actually work with those clients to help those clients use technology to grow, which in turn grew the tech. So that was kind of focus area one of investment, automation. The second area of investment, which was very simple to lay out too, and I already explained it to you, now that bigger and bigger companies wanted and need what we do, the reality was everybody wanted and needed what we do. But at this point, I had no sales or marketing staff. So I wanted to invest in marketing to create brand recognition so people would know who to call when they were ready to do this. And I wanted to invest in sales staff to qualify and close the right opportunities. So that was the second area. And then the third, like I mentioned in the beginning, the market was highly fragmented. There was already consolidation going on. And if we wanted to exist to grow people and do this differently, I wanted to be the consolidator and not the consolidated. So that was the strategy. At the end of 2015, stood up in front of the company, was able to explain that we exist to grow each other, and technology simply accelerates that growth. And we're going to make 3 calculated investments to support our growth, which in turn will allow us all the opportunity to grow each other. Number 1, organic sales and marketing. Number 2, automation. And number 3, acquisition.
That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful journey and story. So inspiring. So let me just kind of unpack this a little bit because there's just so much to learn, Stephen, from you and your journey. And yeah, and I love doing it, love sharing entrepreneurs' journey. So one thing that I kind of, when you were talking about that story, you taking that first $75 check. And so what comes to my mind is that Stephen was just being kind in that CompuUSA store, that you cannot go wrong being a kind person and doing some kind of act of kindness. Your kindness opened up that door, which kind of really gave you the opportunity to kind of really choose a direction that you probably did not imagine before that act. So kindness. And then even there, I mean, that shows your DNA, that you were always being helpful and useful to people, even when you were not paid, right? That helpful, useful mind and that heart to help people. That kind of really gave you that first opportunity and some referrals. Then you were talking about 2015, and I know a lot of people, when they go through all these different stages, and your stage was that 80 people in 2015, when you became a lot more intentional and focused on people, understanding, okay, what brought us here will not probably take you to the next level. And if I want to continue and having that energy and enjoy, what I need to do, what needs to change. And you change your kind of overall that mindset shift a lot more on people building and growing each other. And I love the way you said it. It's like, we all help each other grow. So you talked a lot about, the purpose, the values, the right person, right seat, and then having focus on like, 2 to 3 key areas. So let's go over this one by one. So talk to me about purpose. How did you go about getting a lot more clarity on your purpose? Because that is where the starting point is, right? So how did you go about figuring out your purpose and also like your personal and your company?
Sunny, I'm going to answer that question. I'm actually reflecting on you calling out my initial experience in CompUSA with that person who ultimately asked me for help. And I said yes, as being from a core place of kindness. I don't think I ever thought of it that way before. And as I reflect on that today, it was just a powerful thing for me to receive, right? And you're catching me at a time in my life where once again I'm reflecting, right? We're a much larger company today. We have the entire world ahead of us. We are set up as a rocket ship ready to soar with the best people, the best clients, the best financial sponsors in a market that's hot and in a position to really accelerate. Like I liken where we are today, like telecom in the 1980s, where there was 25,000 mom and pop bells throughout the US. And today there's 5 or 10 larger players that have more market share than all 25 of the 1,000 of those combined. So I see Ntiva as a company that's in a position to do that. And I have noticed the bigger we get, the more personalities we have, the more we're trying to be that winner, the more kindness gets called into question. The more you hear things like, it's just business, it's not personal, or decisions are made on data, but not on humans. or just, just one versus basically just using data to make decisions and not taking a lot of the qualitative factors. Now, I can tell you that is not something we do at Ntiva. Like, we work really hard to combat that, but the bigger we get, the harder it is. And I think until you shared that with me, I didn't realize where that struggle was. And that struggle is really to make sure the human interaction and core kindness in what we're doing is ever present. Yes, we want to grow each other, but I don't want to grow each other by, basically removing people that don't already have the knowledge and instead just having the most brilliant people in the world and using them to help other brilliant people just keep wanting up, going one up, one up, one up, one up. So I want to thank you for bringing that up and challenging me in that today. And I'll tell you, in 2015, when I took a moment to be intentional, what I had realized is I was just in the daily grind. I was waking up, repeating a cycle, doing it over and over and over again. And I didn't really understand why. And how could I expect a group of managers to lead people to do something more than just get the job done if I didn't even understand why I was showing up and doing it every day? So what I did was I took a few days, disconnected from technology, took money off the table, and said, what is it that really lights me up? What is it that fills my tank? And as I mentioned to you previously, the tank filling experiences were when I would hear from a client or from an employee that ever since they started working with us, they learned and grew more than they did in other careers and or formal education. Or in the case of the client, they were able to focus on what was important to them, regardless of whether I agreed with that level of importance. But they were able to focus on that because the technology worked and or the technology was put in place that accelerated their ability to fulfill their own purpose. And that resonated with me, and that was the meaning for me. And that was ultimately what we decided our why would be at Ntiva.
Yeah. So let's talk about that why a little bit, the value system and your future direction, right? So when I left my village in 1993, Stephen, from India, my father told me one thing. Sonny, it's always going to be hard to earn people than money. And earn people and money will follow you. So when you mention take money off, like, okay, if I take money off of the table, what else drives me? I think it aligns with that little bit of thinking that I have been a student of after my father shared that with me. And I'm always walking towards more impact on people, positive impact on people, and how can I earn more people? And it personally served me well as well, the thinking that you shared. It personally served me as well because I am who I am, where I am today, living this American dream. Someone who did not speak English when moved here at 17 and a half, and today being able to do this is because of that focus on really earning people and developing myself. How can I earn more people? And so it's like there's just so much alignment there. Talk to us a little bit about the value system. So, what is the culture at Ntiva? So, when you look at the purpose, the values, and then let us know where you are going with this, with these values, and what's your vision of Ntiva?
Got it. So again, thank you for sharing all that in your own journey. And um, it's interesting to me, there's no adjective after earn, and you just go earn people. Again, that resonates with me. I want to say earn the trust of people, earn the respect of people.
Yeah.
But really earn people is it just sits with me. So thank you for sharing that story and that perspective. It's really wonderful. The values at Ntiva that have, we've changed the phrasing of this over the years, but they've always been fundamentally the same. And they're designed to support that purpose of existing to grow each other. And there are core values of care, ownership, responsiveness, and excellence. And at the end of the day, if you're able to apply these in everything you do and everything you touch at work and hopefully beyond work as well, you ultimately will be fulfilling that purpose, right? And we found that these are just fundamental core values that if you've got these in place, the rest just comes together.
So the existing to grow each other. So talk to us a little bit more. What I hear you say is that we coexist as a team, as people in a company. So it's like I talk to my team that, hey, we are just this little community at work, and we're a group of people with shared sense of purpose, with shared sense of direction, and we are one team, one goal, and we are achieving that with that shared sense of purpose, and we are walking towards together. And when you share that, and one more thing that I share with them normally is that if our future is bigger today than yesterday, we are being successful. It's not about, arriving somewhere. It's about the progress and the growth for everyone. I hear the same thing from you when you say existing to grow each other. So what are some of the strategies that you use to achieve what you just shared, growing each other?
Yeah. So look, there were a lot of questions that you put into place there, right? So specific to the last one, what are some of the things that we put in place to do this? We've created an environment where we have techs working with other techs at all times. So they're being exposed to multiple technologies. They're working with other people to get different perspectives and thoughts on how to tackle a problem. We're constantly trying to push our team members in their career for what they want to be doing next and give them exposure to that, both formally by supporting their education through tuition reimbursement or other certifications, to informally, like putting them on projects that would support where they want to go with their career, even before they're ready to work alongside people and get the real experiential training to move forward. We take it even further, and I can't take credit for some of the things I can share with you today, Sonny, but like we've developed a program where starting early in certain places across the U.S., we're getting into communities and we're helping those communities and the kids in those communities really commit to valuing education, completing high school, ultimately going into universities or colleges that we partner with and participating in what we call a learn and earn program, where we're helping these students actually get on the job training that support their coursework. We're paying them to do that so their coursework is paid for and they can start their lives as independent adults. And then assuming they've done well in the coursework and with us at the end of the program, which is typically 2 years, we're able to extend a full-time job offer and ultimately keep them in these communities. And these communities are typically more rural communities in the US, where maybe the primary jobs used to be a steel mill or a coal mine that have since been shut down. And we're really helping to bring growth into those areas and take really talented people, support their growth, and then keep them in those areas so those areas can blossom again. And we've done this really relatively small scale where in the locations we're doing it, we may be able to bring 6 or 10 people through the program a year, but we're making material impacts on their lives. And like I said, I can't take credit for any of this. None of this was my idea. We've stood up in front of the company. We've talked about existing to grow each other. We've talked about those core values of care, ownership, responsiveness, and excellence. And we've given our team members the autonomy to work within that structure. So what I'm describing to you started at the West Virginia University Parkersburg on the Ohio state line. That was the first one we did. And I didn't even approve it. It got approved without passing my desk. And I went to go shake hands, cut ribbons, and kiss babies as a result of something that our team did based purely on understanding our purpose and having the core values that support it. So those are just a few examples. I can likely give you more, but it's just amazing to see what happens when you actually live this. It's not just something you say, it's something that actually happens in the organization. And there's plenty of stories that support that.
Next week on Sunny Silver Linings.
So the amount of energy I put in to slightly modifying who I was in order to achieve that.
And not really talking with GWC is unkind
100%.
because then there is a lot of suffering at work. Thank you for watching Sunny's Silver Linings. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.